You were alive when we were in the White House, right, John?
Indeed,
Give
I
me
was.
one instance of him doing anything authoritarian. Just one. I'll wait.
Now, let me welcome live on the line Sebastian Gorka, the former Deputy Assistant to President-elect Trump. Hello to you, Sebastian. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you're happy, because of course you are happy. Why would you not be happy? But are you surprised at the scale of this win?
No, I'm not actually. I spoke maybe 6 weeks ago to the two greatest brains I know, and concurrently they came up with two possible scenarios, and I give them full credit. One was a squeaker of a victory for the president, and the other was an absolute trouncing of the Democrats in a landslide. And that's what we've seen. I mean, that
Mm.
CNN moment that's gone viral, where the one guy says, is there any county that Kamala outperformed Biden in? And he says, no, not one in the country. And Jake Tapper
Mm.
goes, what? One? Not one county? I mean, this is such an utter complete destruction of he's Hitler and we're all racists. I mean, this is a victory for the ages, not just the Electoral College, but the popular vote as well. This is a double mandate, and it's a glorious
Yeah.
day to be an American.
Well, difficult to begrudge you that note of triumph. I think a lot of us, when I say us, I suppose I mean the commentariat, would not have been wildly surprised to see a narrow win by either of the candidates. But this blowout of a win, as I say, that took a lot of people by surprise. The difference between a blowout and a narrow win, what made that difference? Because you must have been
Oh,
pleasantly, I suppose, surprised by the scale of it.
well, it's very, very, very easy. I mean, that clip you just played of somebody being interviewed, being doorstepped. I mean, that's a psychosis. I mean, we've had it. People who live in the real world have just had it with this cult that is the Democrat Party that says, "Oh, I've been studying Hitler a lot, and yeah, they just elected Hitler. His son-in-law is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Bibi Netanyahu. They are deranged." And when you have the price of petrol doubling, sometimes tripling in states like California,
Mm.
20 million illegals let into this country by Kamala Harris, wars in the Middle East, wars in Europe. People have just said, sod this. This is insanity. The Hispanic vote. There's one county in Texas that is
Mm.
97% Hispanic, and they elected President Trump. They haven't elected a Republican since, I think it was 1872. I mean, people of every hue have said, you are insane, you Democrats, and we've had it.
Right, so Sebastian, look, if we, for the sake of, I don't know, measured conversation, knock some of the edges off the invective, you've got a criticism consistent from those who have been critical of you that Donald Trump will be an authoritarian. He's spoken about opponents as being the enemy within. Should your opponents be afraid?
Now that's the invective. What you just did is absolute bloody outrage.
Tell
I
me
mean, I mean
why.
seriously. So,
Tell me why.
are you 6 years old? Were you awake when my boss was the president? What did he do in those 4 years that for one scintilla, for one
Mm.
nanosecond, justify that statement? Yeah, John, I will wait here. You tell me one
Yeah.
thing he did in 4 years that justifies that level of absolute vituperative criticism that he's
Let me
authoritarian.
answer you.
Just
Let me
one. No,
answer you
John,
then.
one.
Well, indeed, Sebastian. Let me answer you then for the purpose of this conversation. When I spoke about the enemy within, that wasn't my choice of words. That was the choice of words of
I'm not
of
talking
Donald
about. I'm
Trump
not
in the.
talking about. No. I'm not
I'm
talking
talking about
about
the campaign.
rhetoric. I'm talking about 4 years. You were alive when we were in the White House, right, John?
Indeed,
Give
I
me
was.
one instance of him doing anything authoritarian. Just one. I'll wait.
Well, I mean, I suppose I'm not setting up in opposition to Donald Trump, but since you ask for an example of what some of your critics would consider authoritarian, I might look at the testimony from people very close to the now president-elect who saw and remembered the demonstrations outside the White House and the then presidents. It is testified by people close to him at that point. From what I read, he was suggesting severe action by the military against those protesters. Your former defense secretary.
John,
if I may, you asked me for an example.
But these aren't examples. These are hearsay from people who hated him. I will ask you one more time. Give me one example of something he did when he was commander-in-chief. You are failing. I'll ask you one more time. One instance of something he did. Not hearsay from some clapped-out general like John Kelly, who got into fisticuffs with his advisors in the West Wing. One instance in 4 years.
Yeah, well, look, the example I was quoting was from a former Trump-appointed defense secretary.
Again,
it's not my account.
Hearsay. Give me one instance, not somebody said about President Trump. Do you not speak English? Give me one instance in 4 years. This is mind-blowing that this counts as journalism in the land where I was born. I will say one more time. Give me one instance in the 4 years where you were apparently awake of President Trump acting like an authoritarian. Like, I don't know, the FBI being sent to raid his home by the Biden administration at gunpoint. Give me one instance like that, John. I mean, truly, this is mind-boggling that you say it and then you can't back it up.
Well, no, I mean, it's my function here to present to you things that have been said by authoritative figures describing the actions of the former president.
You are accusing him of being, of authoritarian tendencies, and you can't give me one instance. One instance.
Indeed, I put to you the suggestion that Mr. Trump is authoritarian on the testimony of some who were close to him, and you've given me your answer. I would ask you another one, if I may, on the question of the future. I mean, your promise to Americans now is that they will be better off under a Trump presidency. And of course, the cost of living and the economy was absolutely central to this election. Tell me, is it possible for Americans to be significantly better off if the president starts a trade war with China and slaps tariffs onto all foreign imports, including imports, by the way, Sebastian, from friendly nations, including ours, including Britain?
Well, it's again indicative of your bias. That is what we did in the Trump administration. And we proceeded to have the biggest economy, not America had, the biggest economy the world had ever seen, with swinging tariffs on Mexico, on China, that created new jobs in America, which forced companies like Ford to shut down their building projects in other countries and bring those plants and those jobs back to America. We unleashed the energy to such an extent that the first time in the history of the Republic, we had more oil and gas than we could use, and we were a net exporter to other nations. I mean, seriously, it's like you weren't alive for the 4 years we were in office. President Trump created the greatest economy the world has ever seen, with the tariffs, with the aggressive protection of American jobs. It's empirical fact.
Well, it is also a matter of record that Mr. Trump has spoken of, 60% tariffs on all Chinese goods and 20% on all other goods, which can only have an effect on the market. Not my analysis, the analysis of eminent economists. However, I want to put that to you.
Right. The economists who've never built a sodding thing in their life, as opposed to the man who actually defined the skyscraper outline of New York, the man who is a self-made billionaire. Just stuff the economists and let's get this man sworn in, because he's actually built stuff.